evening, our viewers and listeners from wherever you're catching us from. Welcome to ACFIM Talks. This week's edition, we are going to look at a topic. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, our viewers and listeners. Welcome to ACFIM Talks. You are watching us on this week's edition. We are looking at the topic on navigating the challenges of an electoral college. We have joined with us two guests, one whom I'm going to introduce after giving you a background on the electoral college in Uganda, and also the other who is going to join us. We know that after every 5 years, Uganda conducts special interest groups elections under the category of the youth, persons with disabilities, we have the elderly, and also the workers. Today, we have with us Ssenyonga, who was one of the participants in the just concluded special interest group elections of the youth. He contested as a contestant in the Central region, and he was also a former candidate of Makerere University Guild presidential elections, and he was once the head prefect during his high school days. So before we continue with the introductions, and also we are still waiting for one of our colleagues who is called Nakandi. She will be joining us shortly, and we shall proceed with her. So I first want to take this opportunity to take you through what has been happening and transpiring through this week. We all know that Africa has lost one of its great leaders, that is in the names of John Pombe Magufuli of Tanzania. We want to take a few minutes of silence in commemorating and making sure that he rests in eternal peace. Thank you. Welcome back. Ssenyonga, as you know, you were among the participants of the National Youth Regional Elections that was just concluded. But before we go into detail of what happened or what transpired in that election, I want you to take us through your political career, which started way back while you were still a student at campus. How did this shape your journey into national politics?
Thank you. And maybe just to correct you, my political career did not just start when I was at university. I think it has been taking shape from the time I was within secondary school, having had a very keen interest even with the Uganda National Students Association. So ideally, my journey on campus introduced me and exposed me, number one, to both national and international platforms in terms of political engagement. And as you rightly said, that I stood for the Guild presidential elections. That was in 2016. But even then, from my first year, that was in 2013 or 2013, I was already pursuing a political career. I think even up to the time I was in the Civil Hall of Residence, continued all through to the law school where I was, to Makerere, to the general now elections, and even I continued through that political path, even at the Law Development Center. And I think eventually I then extended to pursue the national elections by stepping out to run for the national, for the Youth MP Central region representative in the Parliament of Uganda. And I think so far that has been my the direct engagement, but I think there's also been indirect political engagement at various levels. Yeah.
Thank you, Simon. I'm told we have been joined by Nakandi. Nakandi is a female youth leader at Mpigi Youth District Council, and she's also the executive director of Mischana, Uganda. I know Mischana Uganda is more of a female youth empowerment organization. So Winnie will tell us more about Mischana Uganda. So Winnie, you're welcome. You've joined us. Simon has given us his historical background of his leadership. through his campus time up to where he has reached now. So I would also like you, Winnie, to give us a historical background, your journey, how your journey through campus up to where you are now was enable you to shape your political, how the politics in the student guilds shaped your career path of joining national politics.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning, viewers. I hope I'm clear.
Yes, yes.
Hello. I hope you can hear me. Yes. Good morning, viewers. Yes, my name is Winifred Nakandi. I'm the executive director and founder of Mischana Uganda. Mischana is a youth-led female organization that emphasizes on empowering young women around the country, but we are concentrating more in Mpigi district because I serve there as the female youth leader on the district youth council. Yes, before I came to the youth council, I was a student of Chambogo University, where I studied my diploma in microfinance and graduated in 2014 and did a degree in economics and statistics from 2014 to 2017. While studying my degree, I engaged in the guild political activities in supporting guild presidential candidates, and I became the guild vice president of Chambogo University 2016-17. While I was the vice president of the guild, I contested for president of all students in Uganda. That is the Uganda National Students Association 2017-18, and I won. The elections were held in Ngeta, that's Lira district. Yes, and I was president of Uganda National Students Association, from where I came to the District Youth Council of Mpigi district, and eventually as a member of the National Youth Council.
Okay, thank you, Winnie, for that brief historical background of your leadership. So I want to start with Simon. You once a presidential candidate at Makerere, and now and you also contested in the just concluded youth elections for Central Uganda. I want you to make us understand what inspired you to move on from student guild politics and also join the national politics. What inspired you?
I think for me, as well, you know, or the public may get to know that I've had a very strong background, especially in service, in church, and always my biggest inspiration is the model of leadership that Christ Jesus espouses, which is a judicious, which is an accountable leadership, which is a value-based and ethical-based leadership. Now, that is, first of all, my biggest inspiration to join any form of activity, and more so leadership. But I think beyond that, or below that, is that number one, the capability I know that I possess to be able to represent, especially as I ran for the young people, and also my desire to be able to transform society positively, and to be able to get people to realize that there is a higher purpose for life to pursue, especially when you take on the path of leadership. And that's why I tell you that my foundation has always been Jesus, has always been that's really the basis of it all.
Yeah, I know there are different dynamics of how politics are conducted in the student guild and now national politics. What were your experiences when you're traversing over 27 districts in Central Region, trying to look out for what? Make us try to understand what some of the experience you went through and some of the challenges.
I think number one, it was very exciting. It was very exciting. It exposed me to quite a lot. On a positive note, obviously, building very strategic networks that are just beyond the electoral campaign that you're going through, but also for my life. and for the desires that I have, even beyond that. The experience also, I got to realize that actually very many young people lack very clear purpose of their lives. Because most of them, they obviously perceive you who wants to represent them as some sort of mini ATM that they should be able, or some sort of cash cow that they should be able to milk as and when they feel that you show up. And they forget that there is a greater agenda. So we have had a generation, or we have a generation of young people who are not agenda-based in terms of their running through life, in terms of their living through life. Most of them are, the day-to-day living kind of people. They are not wanting or desiring really to position themselves to be, whether regionally or globally competitive, to sit at the highest tables, to influence policy, to influence governance, to influence the most life-transforming decisions that influence the entire human fraternity. But what they are mostly interested in is, can we just go into the next electoral cycle, participate in the next electoral process? So that was my experience, even in terms of interacting with most of the young people. So that has been something that I have come to learn, and I am hoping that I can even use that experience beyond just the electoral process to transform the lives, because my passion was just beyond getting an electoral position, but it was serving and directing people to a higher purpose, which was beyond the political position. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Winnie, you've shared with us, you've had a very good road to in leadership. I want you to make us understand how you've been able to maneuver all these political journeys. And we know that politics is perceived more of being a male-dominated arena. You've been able to beat all the odds up to now where you are. How have you managed to be able to keep moving, keep pushing yourself from stage to stage up to where you have been right now?
Thank you so much. I definitely cannot say that it's not been challenging, because there are also positions that I wanted to hold, but I have not managed to get them. The Students' Guild especially, you see, in the beginning, you have to know that I have to do this, I want to do this. And as women and as young people, there are things that we need to say, okay, I want to do this and I can do it, regardless of who is in the race, regardless of who you're competing against, you want to go for it. And there are things that you believe in and you want to change or you want to address, and you feel you have to be there. So definitely it is challenging, but there is a zeal and vigor and enthusiasm to serve the people. So you go for it, and other things find you on the way. But the Students Association is an electoral college, like the National Youth Council. You have to. I had to traverse the whole country. I had to campaign in every district in Uganda. I had to go to most secondary schools in major towns and cities. I had to visit the district delegates, the students' councils, and delegates from institutions of higher learning. So definitely it's challenging. Like Simon said, in one way or the other, voters see you as an ATM. Whenever you're rich, people want money. That is basically, that is the order of the day in the electoral college. But when people over time get to know your values, when people over time get to believe in your ideals, in one way or another, you get through. But definitely it's very challenging, and you need to be on the ground so much. You need to spend resources, time, money, you need personnel. It is really tiresome, but we thank God that we maneuver sometimes, but of course we do not get everything. Sometimes we do not get the positions that we aspire for.
Okay, thank you so much, Winnie. Simon, you were a candidate in the just concluded elections. We wanted you to share with us some of the experiences you went through contesting with candidates from a party like NRM, who were facilitated with about 60 million shillings, Uganda shillings. What were some of the experiences you went through contesting with such candidates who were well facilitated?
I think for me, the experience is just even beyond the financial muscle that they have. I think what makes an election is not just the financial muscle. Obviously, you have the message, you have the person who is advancing the message, and then you have the resources, yes. And these resources can be human, informational, or even financial. So I wouldn't love us to limit ourselves. Firstly, the general experience has to be put in the context of the prevalent political situation and circumstance as it was by the time we ran for this election. You remembering that this was a time, the post-COVID season, there was still curfew. You're dealing with a candidate, or you're dealing with candidates who have quite a strong machinery that is operationally organized. From the national, you go down to the district, you go down to the local government, up to the village level. So the experience is that, number one, you're interacting massively with quite a strong state machinery. So you're having a person who probably is backed up by the GISO, by the DISO, by the PISO, by the RDC, by the NRM coordinators, and the secretariat, which runs up to the grassroots level, at all from the LC1, LC3, LC5 levels. And you're having most of the youth committees really being managed by the NRM. So when you're running that election, my experience was that at the most basic human machinery, maybe at a district level, the NRM candidate probably has already a team of about 25 maybe per district, at least 25 per district that are ready to work for them. Here you are, one person, and probably with your team that you have to work with. And that's why I think I kept on pointing you to the fact that my race was just beyond the organizational capacity, but actually it had to be, my greatest reliance was on the values that I stand for, which are the values of Jesus. And that is why, that was my driving force, that was my passion, and that was my encouragement, even in some of these toughest moments, that there was a greater force that was backing me beyond just the organizational structure. And that is actually what makes the difference, because then it causes you to peer out of life beyond the person who has run the typical political campaign race. Because my message was quite clear, that we came onto this platform to change the narrative of what politics had been designed to be. That, you don't have to say that, let us follow the current trajectory and everything. Let us lose hope because somehow everything seems to be running bad. So in terms of exposure to the machinery, that was my experience. Financially now, you obviously realize that for most of the NRM candidates, and I think across the board, beyond just my colleague Agnes, who I competed with, most of them are financed based on government resources. Now that can be an argument for another day, we can discuss another day, but what actually happens is that there's a lot of financial backup that is given, especially to these colleagues of ours. Now, you as an independent candidate, and I think this was a discussion that I was having earlier on before we came onto the show, that the idea of Article 21 of the Constitution is that it wants to create affirmative action. And affirmative action is about empowering those who have been historically marginalized. Now, you talk about young people historically marginalized, you tell them that you're going in for electoral college election. I like what my colleague Winifred says. She has to run for that one position, probably not as an NRM candidate. I do not know, maybe she was by then, or maybe she wasn't, but she has to traverse the whole nation. So you're saying you're empowering her, but you're not financing her to run that campaign. So if you're running, for example, in Central Region alone, you have 27 districts to cover. You have over 700 counties to move in, 700 sub-counties to move in, and almost all of them you must appear. Almost in every meeting, you have to spend not less than 50,000 per delegate. So ideally, the starting figure you may need financially for the election that I was running was at least 600 million Uganda shillings at the starting level. Now, somebody may say, but the NIM uses less. But yes, you're saying NIM uses less because they have already a resource capacity, a human resource capacity that does not need a lot of financial fueling. Now, on this other side, you have to establish individual structures. You even have to use the ones that are already existent, which may be a little tricky. But then that means if that is absent, then you have to use the massive financial resource. I'll just finalize with this. Now, even the nature, my experience again with the nature of the population that we are dealing with, I think there is a whole narrative which is spread out there that, young people are extremely exposed to technology. They are able to access information based on technology. Ignore the fact that our internet penetration is still dismal at different levels. But we are into an election which is during the post-COVID season, and they're telling you, you must spend much more time campaigning online. So you're going to spend much more time. Somehow they want to make you believe that the internet penetration spreads across beyond Kampala. You realize that those who are especially active on social media are the ones within the urban areas. But our voters extend to the semi-urban, to the rural areas. So even in terms of information flow, given our dismal internet penetration, made it much more complex to actually get the clear message inside there. And what that does actually for the electorate is that they are not able to vote based on clear agenda. They're not able to vote based on a clear message. They're not able to adequately interact with every individual that seeks to pursue this particular political position. But above all, there is also massive intrigue. There is massive intimidation. I think there was a time, I think on the last day, you realize that our voting venue was changed one day to the election. The Electoral Commission never notified officially the candidates. We also got to know it by rumor that actually we had been changed from Masaka. Here we were going to Mubende. What happens when we reach Mubende? I think for some of us, we had posed quite a challenge, especially to some of the candidates. They didn't know what to expect with some of us. So my experience personally with my team is that we were locked out of Mubende. We reached to book hotels in Mubende for our delegates, and we were told all hotels had been booked by the NRM, and we were thrown out of the hotels. Now, we had to stay in Mischana. When you approximate the distance, it's about a 1.5, 2 hours journey from Mubende, from the voting venue to Mischana. Now, ideally for a candidate who has spent quite much more time when there are a couple of constraints here and there, then you have to deal with the final day election challenges. On the final day election challenge, we were told that our candidate, we could not, my team could not come in with any campaign material. Actually, I have pictorial evidence that our team went in the night before and pinned the whole venue for voting. By the following morning, all our posters had been torn down and they had been replaced with those of the NRM candidate. On election day, my people were pushed out of the electoral area, and those of the candidate were all, they came in with all their material, t-shirts, capes, yet actually they were using COVID rules to push our people out. Even at the polling station itself, there was this micromanagement of the whole election by the security. I saw some of my agents being arrested. I saw many of them who are being intimidated, and I saw many of them who are being thrown out of the venue. So ideally, you don't go on equal grounds. So already there is a challenge and a frustration posed to you pre-election, then during election day, and even post-election. The bastardization and stupefaction of the politics is that they will try to taint the names and to maim the names of the candidates who participated in the election by giving you bad publicity. Now, they use their state machinery to give you bad publicity, and then you have to use much more counter forces to actually choose whether you will not respond like what I chose. I thought, what will make the difference between me and them if I chose to go to stoop so low to respond to some of these fellows? I think you choose the highest way always in life, to be much more civic in your engagement, because you don't think that your leadership career is going to stop with the election that you've pursued. I think there is much more, some of us hold much more bigger images just beyond that small electoral position, and we think our inspiration has to spread beyond just our experiences, whether negative or positive, but we hope that when we share the experience, they can positively impact the young people of this nation.
Thank you so much, Simon. But I want you to respond to something in the next 1 minute. Do you think if you had contested, because you're complaining about the state machinery and the organization of NRM as a political party, do you think if you had come as a candidate and a party ticket, you would not have such hurdles of going to create your own structures, because already parties have existing structures which you can work through and be able to meet various delegates from the districts you've been traversing? Do you think if you had come as a candidate in a party ticket, you would not face such hurdles and challenges in deep to 1 minute?
All right, in just 1 minute, I will just tell you that I have two responses which have been standard towards that. Number one, you have to realize that the constitution of this nation, by the time we opened up to a multi-party democracy in 2005, the idea was that you could choose to campaign either within a political party or you could choose to campaign as an independent. The right to association in a political party also means the right to de-associate with that particular political party. Now, I hold strong views about some of these political parties because I never want to engage in something that does not have a clear-headedness and a clear mind in terms of the agenda. I don't simply associate because they have a strong muscle down to the grassroots, but I think also there has to be clarity in message and clarity in purpose, because these are values that you're going to hold on to your entire legacy throughout your life. So number one, the constitution gave me the liberty to run as an independent candidate. Practically speaking, was it possible to run under the NRM? Number one, you look at the prevailing circumstances. So you have to, somehow, you have to be some sort of cadre towards them. And we may not go into the details, again, to protect some of the images of our colleagues concerning the dirt that is in the politics, just to save space for some of them. But number two, you have to realize, my colleague, that I think it was in June or July in 2020, there was an amendment to the Political Parties and Organizations Act that gave power for the existent structures within the political parties to extend their power for an extra 6 months. Now, with that, what it would mean that you have all delegates, all right, voting for the party flag bearer. For example, actually not for example, in all political parties. So ideally, even if I was to pursue that path, no matter how I had a very good message or no matter the competence of my candidature, ideally I should have been in the political party for over 5 years. Now, what happens is that you have people who voted for a flag bearer who are ideally not youth as per law, because a person who was a youth in 2016, by 2021, if in 2016 they were 28 years, all right, by 2021, by 2020 when they did the flag bearer elections, they were not youth. So my entry point within any party I would have chosen if I was to run in a political party, what it would mean that I would not find leveled ground because of the amendment in the Political Parties Act, the practicality of the entry point, but above all, what the Constitution guarantees me. And then we are hoping that we can get to leverage and build on our democracy based on the policies, also to challenge its competence by taking on this path to test and also to share experiences with the government and with those who believe in us and those who observed us to realize that these things should be a reality.
Thank you, Simon. When you are on your earlier discussion, you were hinting on the issue of money being a center in the elections you participated in during UNSA. But there are also allegations that that there's prevalent voter bribery in the Electoral College elections. How true are some of these allegations? I know you participated as a delegate.
I think those are allegations that are both, they are factually true, and above all, I think it can be experienced. And I'll just cite for you two examples. During my election for the Youth MP Central Region, I made a strategic trip to go to Arua to observe the election of the National Female Youth MP elections. What happens there is that delegates, by law, are entitled to a particular facilitation for their accommodation, for their feeding, and for their transport. Why? Because many of them traverse the whole nation to come and vote in a particular area, such as Arua. So you can imagine, you can't tell a delegate to come from as far as Kisoro to come to Arua, and you simply tell them to come for free. Now, what they were told, I think, that they had to have a transport refund, a feeding refund, and accommodation refund. And I think the standard had to be 500,000 Ugandan shillings when you look at it. And I think when they reached, they were being told they're going to be given about 200,000. Now, what happens is this. Our colleagues in the NRM are tactical in their approach. So what happens is that they have learned the politics of create a negative situation, then come out as the savior of the negative situation. So what they will do is that they will hoard the finances that are meant to facilitate the delegates, and then they will use their candidate as the champion of fighting for the rights of those who have been sort of disenfranchised. What do I mean by that? What I saw in my election, for example, delegates come in and they were told that you're going to receive an allowance of about maybe 300,000. I think the mentioned it was 500,000. Winnie was a delegate. I think she could get to tell us better. What happens is that there will be people complaining, all right, because the funds have been hoarded or been withheld. When they complain, somehow the NRM candidate will posture as if they're the only ones who are able to talk to the Electoral Commission and persuade them to change their minds to be able to give what people are entitled to. Now, because of that, then the resources which would have gone to the delegates are sort of used for the party postures that we're the ones who are giving out these resources. So bribery is both in that financial level, but also there is bribery that was used by the security itself. I saw security, because they're the ones who are manning the different centers, the electoral centers, they would even clandestinely position, for example, the security in plain clothes to move around the different lines during the voting to tell people that vote the NRM candidate. If you want access to the president, if you want access, for God's sake, when did we fall below that level where we are saying that I don't pursue an electoral position because I want to meet the president. I don't pursue an electoral position because somehow the president is my savior. The mandate is given to me by the people, the young people of this nation, who are diverse politically, diverse religiously, diverse ideologically. So the bribery was being instilled strategically and clandestinely by the security officials. So that is how the two manifestations of the bribery, I could have said, are beyond what, even just to again protect the image of some of our fellows in the NRM. That's what I can share for now.
Thank you, Simon. When we had lost you, but you're welcome back. We are going to get back to you after we head for a short, brief commercial break, and then we shall get back.
The monster of money politics is eating up Uganda's democracy. When you take money from a candidate, it means you are feeding the monster. Then you become a part of the problem. When a candidate who overspends on campaigns is elected, he or she will not represent voters but himself. He or she will engage in corruption to recover campaign money. Social services will not be delivered and the voter will suffer more. Voter, let's be wise. Give democracy a chance. Do not sell your vote. Focus on the issue.
Welcome back, our viewers. Today we have two guests. One has been the former candidate in the just concluded regional youth elections, and one is the executive director of Mischana, and also she's at the district council of Mpigi as a female youth. So when we have been discussing about the issue of how voter bribery is alleged to be prevalent in the electoral college elections. So from your perspective, you as a delegate, we understand that Electoral Commission first of all facilitates each delegate. And the just concluded election, about 3.4 billion Uganda shillings was used to facilitate over 6,535 delegates who participated in the entire youth elections. And there are contestations that this money was not given on time and caused a lot of havoc and uproar among the delegates who even wanted to not participate in the elections. But there are also allegations that some of these delegates do go there and candidates do facilitate them in terms of giving them transport refund, in terms of giving them housing allowances. So how true is it that there's a lot of voter bribery in these college elections?
Thank you so much, Abel. We have a problem, a general problem in the politics of Uganda. And I do not know if at this level it is the parties that are intending to bribe voters, or it is the voters that are used to blackmailing candidates. There is a general financial blackmail, like Simon was saying, because Simon was a candidate in just the concluded elections. You see, even in the general elections, which are not special interest group elections, a lot of money flowing, but it is not as much as the money in special interest group elections. The delegates, the Electoral College in Uganda is suffering a very bad mosaic, a very bad virus that will either take very long to heal. It is either some elements are intending to do it that way, or because of lack of institutionalization, now that institutions do not work, people know even if you voted into parliament, there is nothing that you're likely to change. It is a caucus thing. That is why people have lost trust altogether in leaders that are elected. So in one way or the other, voters feel, for me, I will take what I take and I'll give you the vote. So it is very unfortunate and absurd that we are missing out on very good leaders because they do not have the money to finance these electoral colleges. Like Simon was saying, if you want to be a youth MP in Uganda, you have to finance people from their village level elections. People blackmail you from the beginning of the electoral process, the electoral process at village level. Even someone who knows that they will not be a delegate, but they are currently a delegate and they will not be a delegate in your particular election. They want to make you feel they are the kingmaker in their district. And now it is even worse for people who first went through NRM primaries, because they want to do the primaries, spent money, and then maybe came back as independents or something like that. So it is true that there is a very bad vice, especially in the special interest group elections. Votes go for as high as 500,000 shillings per voter. And this is absurd, but I would like to think it is also blackmail on the side of voters. But that blackmail also arises from the fact that people have known over time that even if you are elected into parliament, there are minimal chances that you will deliver. There are minimal chances that you will stand on the side of the people. There are minimal chances that you will say, okay, this is what the young people want, and not go with what your party caucus wants. So people know that even if they vote you, after swearing in, that's a done deal. So they want to get their share before you get there, which is a very unfortunate thing. In these youth council structures, village level, parish level, parish level, sub-county level, actually very unfortunately, even in other special interest group elections, these SID positions were formed because these groups were rather marginalized. The young people, persons with disabilities, the elderly. But it is unfortunate that those marginalized groups actually require so much money. For you to be an MP of the elderly, you require so much money because the electoral college is small, you have a particular number of voters, like 500 or 1,000. So there is a price tag on every head. And it is, for me, there are things that I've witnessed definitely as a delegate. There are instances where a candidate transports voters from their homes or from Kampala, say, to the district or to the venue where the election will be held. After transporting them, they feed them. Like Simon was saying that he reached when all hotels had been booked. There definitely would not be a scenario of booking hotels, of hotels being booked by a particular group or a particular individual, if these people were not actually booking them to accommodate delegates. Like you said, Electoral College already caters for these, rather Electoral Commission, the Uganda Electoral Commission, already caters for these expenses. They give you a refund to cater for your transport, for your accommodation and your welfare while you are in that particular venue for election. But most candidates, most delegates are transported, accommodated, and fed by a particular delegate. And the funny bit is, even after feeding them and accommodating them and transporting them, They still blackmail the candidate on the voting day. If you do not give us this much, we shall not give you a vote. I think Simon knows these things very well. They have been there for very many years. So what then does a young person, what then does a 24-year-old or 29-year-old person do when they are standing for a youth MP position? They are being put in a position where they have to get a lot of money. If you're a good leader and you know in your heart that, okay, I am very enthusiastic about leading the young people, about representing them in parliament, I've been maybe at different positions and I feel this is what is lacking. If you're very enthusiastic and ambitious and you know it is you who will deliver this, on top of all that, on top of your very beautiful agenda, on top of your speed in moving the entire country, people will tell you, okay, Simon, we've had you. You speak so well, have a very polite agenda. Actually, we think you're the best candidate, but you have money. So, in one way or another, we are definitely missing out on good leaders. It is also true that in a few or in some circumstances, you'll find that the person who won was actually still the best leader, But then that means that after discovering yourself, after knowing that I am a leader and I want to do this, there's a lot of things that I will change. There are a lot of mishaps and vices that I'll have to address. Okay, now I have to walk the journey of looking for money. Then you have to look for money for many years and have about 500 million before you go into a race, or as you are in the race. So there are cases where the person who won, because they put in a lot of money, was still the most befitting candidate. But this money vice is also exposing us to a fact that you'll find that the highest bidder takes the day. And this is also in general elections. So people are standing for parliamentary elections or local council, local government elections. The highest bidder in many cases takes the day. Only that, in some instances, you'll find that because of that blackmail at the last minute, people want money even if you fed them and accommodated them, then they will give a protest vote to your opponent who has not done anything for them, but because you've not given them more money, then somehow someone without money will go through because of protest vote. Thank you, Abel.
So much, Winifred. Now, Simon, I'm returning to you. You shared very interesting insights on how the Electoral College is so commercialized and it requires a lot of money, over 600 million. Someone has to have over 600 million to be able to compete effectively. So now I want to come from the point of how you source for this money, because I do believe very many candidates, the youth, don't have that money, but they have to go through various channels to source for this money. And there are already very many stories around that. Most of the people who fund or who bankroll these candidates have already captured the Electoral College system. So if they don't give you the money, you are not likely to go through, or if they don't back you, chances of you going through is so minimal. So I want to understand from you, where are some of the sources, like you independent candidates, where do you get your sources of funds, and do they give you conditions sometimes when they are giving you this money?
Thank you, Ebo. Now, I think for me, I'll always take you back to the point I made earlier, that my personal experience is that whatever my financing had to be tied back to the greater agenda that I had, which is the value-based leadership, especially on the values that I've learned, especially by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Now, for me, it was not even just about looking for the money. It was about the purpose for the pursuit of the resources. And I don't want to attribute my financial muscle to anything like hard work, anything like talking to many people here and there, anything to entirely my Lord Jesus financed my election. And I'll show you demonstrably how that was done. He brought in the people that I actually needed to finance. Now, people have different ways they can choose for life to get whatever they want to get. I've chosen the highest way to get whatever I want to get. So mine was a much more miracle-based journey that I got people who actually, people of goodwill, people who are brought to my life in unexplainable ways to be able to participate with me on this journey of the whole election process. I saw people volunteering and giving me cars to use. I saw people giving me financial resources. Now, for me, I think that is one of the stories that is not told massively in the media about the kind of way I have chosen. I think what we have always had before is the typical thing that happens. I know for a fact that some of these people have to source by, number one, and I'm sure my sister Winifred will tell you some of these stories. You have many of the young female leaders having even to sleep around to actually get money. Because they have to use their bodies to get money. You have people who have to make dirty backdoor deals. All right. I heard of an incident, and I don't know, I'm hoping it may not be true, but from my sources, I have a bit of, I take it with a pinch of salt, but again, with some level of truth to it. That even some of these candidates, what they do, what Winnie told us are the kingmakers. These kingmakers will sit down and tell you, we control the electorate, we control the politics, we control the money. So if you trust us, we shall finance you, all right? But on condition that we make a very clear agreement with you that we are getting at least maybe 70% of your salary as an MP in the first 3 years of your being in parliament. Now, for them, they're simply some political pundits who sit back and they're waiting for the next candidate. I had that incident on election day when we were in Mubende. A group of young, not I think I would call them mature youth, who came to me and told me, now, we have had you a very good candidate, but you see, if you don't see us, you will not be able to win the election. So I tell them, okay, what do you have to tell me? They say, now, as you see us here, number one, we can make sure we turn, we do like sort of like we swing the election towards your favor by influencing key districts that can vote for you. All you have to do is to make a deposit of some money, but also we shall to make an agreement that in case you win, we also do what? Get some money from you. Now I'm imagining we're about 11 candidates in my race. If they met each of them, and if I was gullible, like some of them, probably I would have made a deposit of some money that even if you did not win, for them they have earned. And even if you win, they continue earning from you. And even if you choose not to align yourself with their agenda, they will begin blackmailing you and mudslinging you, all for the sake of building their political clout. So the sourcing of finances has different avenues, and one of them is that. Now, obviously, I think apathy is never an option in everything that we do or in anything that we choose to do. Apathy has never been an option. That's why I always want to introduce the highest way to people, that actually there is a way where you are able to have success, you're able to have the money that you want without having strings attached to it. And it's possible and it's doable. Then you don't have to suffer the stress, the post-electoral stress, the post-electoral moral, moral disintegration, because somehow you've engaged yourself in such a way. So for me, that was my experience, and those are some of the avenues of sourcing of finances.
Thank you, Simon. Winifred, Simon has hinted on something very interesting about how some women use their bodies to source for money. I want us to discuss on this vice of sexual pacification of women, which has become a silent cancer, which some people don't want to discuss about. Do you think this is one of the challenges that is making us have few young women participate in elections, because they find it very difficult to go and try to source for money, and everyone is asking, first give me before I give you?
Thank you, Abel. That's unfortunate. Money, because money is one of the most relevant player in these elections. Definitely, we have to look for money. But I wouldn't want to put it like women are sexually harassed to get money. You see, sexual harassment is everywhere, and it is not something that we can pin to politics. It happens in the job market. It happens in markets. It happens in Owino. Someone says the person responsible for the stalls said I would not get a stall if I did not do this. So that is not something that is happening in politics alone. It is a very bad vice that is happening everywhere, and I wouldn't really want to center this discussion on that, because some of these resource mobilization strategies are personal. It's either personal virtues or personal values or personal ideals. People mobilize money in different ways, and it is very difficult, definitely. But if for some people that is their strength, then maybe that is what they have chosen to do. However, I would only get concerned if someone came up and said she was raped in the process. Of course, there is sexual harassment, like there is this someone stalks you, or someone is on your neck pleading with you and is making you very uncomfortable. You've shown them that you're uncomfortable, but they are keeping on your neck. However, in instances where someone chooses to mobilize money in whichever way they want, and they feel it's a do or die for me, I have to get this money whichever way it is, then some of these are really personal choices. And like I said, sexual harassment is not only in the political field. It is everywhere. Some people can choose to sleep their way to high positions. Some people can choose to sleep their way to to high ranks. Some people can choose to sleep their way to better grades. So basically, it is everywhere. These are personal values. These are things that you cannot do as a person. But of course, there are outlier cases of people, of men who make women very uncomfortable with sexual advances. And the women have shown them that this is uncomfortable for me. I don't want to discuss this. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to have such a conversation with you. This is not what I came here for. But they will still, some men are immoral. Some men are immoral, and they will do anything. They just feel they like objectifying women. They see women as objects, but those are some outlier cases. Otherwise, if someone use that as a tool to mobilize for money, it could be their personal conviction. It could be their what they stand for as people. Maybe they don't mind that.
Okay, thank you so much. Simon, as you conclude, I want you to tell us, moving forward, you have explained to us how the things in Electoral College are making it more of a money-centered area where you have to first go in when you have almost money, but also the delegates who participate in it make it somehow a bit commercialized, and some other political parties also make the process not favorable for other candidates. So I want to understand you to tell us, what would you recommend to be done? What are some of the issues that you would recommend policymakers to take into consideration so that we can be able to introduce some political hygiene when you're conducting our Electoral College elections?
I think the first thing when you talk about political hygiene is that you must realize that the spirit of something is much more important than the thing itself. Now, the spirit of the policy that is to be made is much more important than the policy itself. For me, it's not just a policy solution that can actually deal with electoral, the high monetary usage in the politics. Number one, it has to go back to the nature of the moral fabric and the nature of the value-based leadership that we seek to advance. The values and the foundation is always the starting point beyond even when you make a policy. For example, I'll tell you, Uganda is an inherently religious nation. But somehow, when it comes to times like this, we tend to swift off the path which we have known that there's some values that we cannot espouse as a predominantly religious nation. And that's what informs some of our ideological perspective and perception in our engagement. I know for a fact that the values I've learned and the values have been instilled upon by my foundation, which is Jesus Christ, and some people who have greatly and fundamentally inspired my life. For example, as you all know, Prophet Elvis Mbonye, I've been able to realize that actually you can take a much more higher moral ground beyond what has been taken by the general masses in the politics. You need not to be like any other person, but you should be able to distinguish yourself in the way that you do things. Secondly, my experience as a lawyer has come to show me that Uganda lacks an independent law that monitors electoral financing in Uganda. Uganda, for example, I think the monitoring of money in elections has been scattered across different laws, But the most important thing has to be showed that we have to enact an independent law based on international good practices. We have obviously ratified a couple of laws, international treaties, that are able to deal with things like corruption within Africa, even within at a regional level. But then Uganda hasn't yet enacted an independent law to deal with that. And they can be able to follow these different practices. So the two positions for me, as my parting shot, are: number one, we have to rethink our value basis and our moral ground. And then secondly, think about a legal and policy discussion based on enactment of an independent law that is meant to deal with electoral financing.
Thank you so much, Simon. So, Winifred, now getting back to you. You are leading an organization that works on empowering young women. And I wanted to understand from you, how do you plan to use your platform to rally more women to participate as contestants in the election? Because we saw in the just concluded youth elections on the regional level, only 3 women participated out of 24 candidates. So how are you going to use your platform to make sure that you rally more women to come and contest?
Yeah, thank you. There is need to build trust again amongst voters, amongst the electorate as a general. Rather, as a whole, people in one way have lost trust in leadership, have lost trust in political positions, because first of all, there is also a budget problem. Some people are voted into power, but their positions cannot do anything, because of budgeting. So in one way, like leaders at local government level, most people are not able to do anything. So women would like to come and participate in this leading political processes. However, the voters must have trust in what they will do. So in this period of time, we shall strive to build value-based leadership. We shall strive to build leadership centered on service delivery, which is service-oriented. We want to serve the people even with the minimal resources that we have. We want to rally these young people to see what a leader must do, to ask for accountability from leaders. We want to teach them, or basically to educate them on the roles of most of the political offices that are held. Want to educate them on the roles of the LC5 chairman, roles of the member of parliament, because like what these brothers and sisters of mine are facing in these electoral college positions, we don't know what MPs should be doing. Even those that are elected, they don't know what they should be doing. So we want to educate people on the roles, the young people specifically, on the roles of the different leaders that they have elected in power, such that they can have a point from which they can ask for accountability from these people. In one way or the other, more people will feel energized and they feel motivated to come into these processes when even the voters know what this LC3 woman councillor should be doing, so that they do not expect school fees from them. They don't expect them to be preparing, organizing their burials or digging graves of their loved ones, their departed loved ones. People need to know what these leaders will be doing, what they're expected to do, and they need to know how to ask for accountability from them. So definitely we shall have trainings, we shall have outreaches through the young people in school, in school and out of school, and also young teenage mothers, young people who are aspiring to join leadership. We shall be training them on different grounds, but we need to show them what their leaders must be doing, what that leader that you elected as the LC2 chairman or as the LC3 chairman must be offering or must be doing as the chairperson of your village or your sub-county, but other than paying for school fees for your children. So in one way, or in that way, we expect more people, when we reduce this money-minded mindset amongst the young people, we expect more people to pick interest in taking up these positions again, and also not to face that monster of being blackmailed to get where they want to be.
Thank you so much, Winnie. Thank you so much, Simon, for your time. We are coming to our tail end of our discussion. My take home today is from you that, for Simon, you agitating that we need to have a comprehensive campaign finance law, which is going to tame some of the money that is used in the elections. This is one of the area ACFIM is advocating for. You also talked of how we need to shape our moral values on how we should participate in politics. We shouldn't make it look like it's just we forget about our moral values when it's during election processes. Winnie, you have discussed of how we should be able to build capacities in terms of training of the women so that they can be able to come and participate in elections. We want to appreciate all our viewers from wherever you are. This is ACFIM Talks. It's a weekly edition which discusses issues on money in politics. We shall have another edition next Friday. So we appreciate your time for being with us. We catch up next week. Thank you. I remain Abel Esero.
Uganda's democratization process suffers from highly commercialized politics. Too much money circulates in Uganda's election, and it's mind-blowing where it comes from. Uganda's economic experience a dip in gross domestic product, GDP, every time a general election is concluded. One way of curbing this is through campaign finance legislation. And this is what ACFIM has been advocating since 2015. This advocacy intensified in 2019.
ACFIM has been able to engage the different caucuses of parliament so that they can appreciate that there is a bigger problem when it comes to money in politics. And also appreciate that the only easy way of addressing that problem is through a legislation. ACFIM has engaged MPs, but also mobilizing them to support the campaign finance law.
On February 26th and 27th, debate on campaign finance legislation finally reached the floor of Parliament following 5 years of sustained advocacy.
We have seen the economy really being affected by a lot of money flowing, chasing little, and causing inflation. And this is something which we felt that it is extremely important to really regulate, come up with a law to limit this big expenditure of money that really affects and hurts our economy. Someone would pour 2 billion in an election. Imagine for a member of parliament slot.
Campaign financing you are raising, if we really become serious, it will be done. But there will be colleagues who say we don't need it, but until it hits them, that's what I know. So for me, I would suggest, Madam Speaker, that my colleague there be allowed to bring that campaign financing bill to attach something in the electoral process other than waiting, because it's an opportunity for it.
After 2 days of heated debate, legislators confirmed with the recommendation of the Legal and Parliamentary Committee that Uganda needs not provisions scattered in different electoral laws, but a standalone law on campaign financing. This is a reinforcement of ACFIM's position on the same.
This being a new area of the law within our legislative advocacy efforts, many members of Parliament felt that regulation of political finance would be a move to kick themselves out of Parliament, because you realize that most of them do come to Parliament as a result of excessive expenditures during elections.
When we heard that the Committee on Legal was coming to Bunyoro, we took it as a golden opportunity to massively mobilize local people. We're interested in making sure that we emphasize the need to legislate on campaign financing, specifically for the committee to appreciate the need to create a cap on how much and how the money that is invested in campaigns is tracked.
If campaign finance disclosure provisions had gotten integrated into the national electoral laws, it would have created a higher level of transparency and accountability.
If those campaign finance provisions had been embedded in the electoral laws of Uganda, it would have gone a long way in changing the electoral playing field, because then we would have for the first time gotten provisions to regulate and level the playing field for elections. It would have helped women and youth who have not had the access to be able to compete with the men who have gained a lot of access in social financing. All is not lost, because at least when you look around, the subject of legislating on election campaign financing has gained traction, not only within Parliament, but also within the political parties and the citizenry, but also the media.
Since 2015, ACFIM has been advocating for the enactment of campaign finance law that regulates money in politics and electoral processes. ACFIM will not relent until Uganda has legislation to shield electoral processes from the toxic effect from unregulated money. Partner with us. Help support ACFIM's mission of contributing towards building electoral integrity by promoting transparency and accountability in financing of political processes through research, civic engagement, monitoring and advocating for reforms. Contribute today at www.politicalfinanceafrica.org/donate. Together, we can contribute towards enhancing democracy as a viable system of governance in Uganda. Contact us at acfim@politicalfinanceafrica.org or acfimuganda@gmail.com or www.politicalfinanceafrica.org, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.